10 years. 10 years of love, sacrifices, and compromises. But in one cruel moment, he shattered everything, right at the altar. Would I walk away? Or would this be the moment I finally chose myself? This is a story about betrayal, courage, and the unexpected twist that changed my life forever. Before we dive in, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. The dress that exposed the truth. I should have known something was wrong when he frowned at my reflection in the mirror. The boutique was bathed in soft golden light, the kind that made everything and everyone look more beautiful than they really were. But even that couldn't soften the tightness in Mark's jaw as I twirled in front of the floor-length mirror, the delicate lace of my wedding dress whispering against my skin. "Well?" I asked, my voice too bright, too hopeful. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he tilted his head, studying me like I was a painting he couldn't quite figure out. Then, with a slow exhale, he said it. "Claire, aren't you too old for this dress?" The air left my lungs like I'd been shoved. I blinked at him, waiting for the laugh, the "just kidding," the "you know I'm terrible at jokes." But his expression didn't crack. If anything, it hardened, like he'd been holding this in for years and finally let it slip. The seamstress, a sweet older woman named Rosa, froze mid-pin. The silence was so thick I could hear the hum of the overhead lights. Forced a laugh. "What's that supposed to mean?" Mark shrugged, slipping his hands into his pockets like he hadn't just knocked the wind out of me. "It's just a very young, very princessy. Don't you think?" Princessy. The word echoed in my head. I looked back at the mirror. The dress was romantic. Vintage lace, cap sleeves, a fitted bodice that flared into a soft, dreamy skirt. It was the kind of dress I'd imagined wearing since I was a little girl, back when I still believed in fairy tales. But now, under his gaze, I suddenly felt ridiculous. Like I was playing dress-up in something meant for someone younger, prettier, better. Rosa cleared her throat. "It's a classic silhouette," she said carefully. "Timeless, really." Mark smirked. "Yeah, if you're 22. Something sharp twisted in my chest. This wasn't just about the dress. It was about the way he'd sighed when I mentioned wanting a small, intimate wedding. Seems like a waste for something that's basically just paperwork. The way he'd rolled his eyes when I got excited about centerpieces. "You're overthinking this, Claire. No one cares about flowers." The way, lately, every little joy of mine felt like an inconvenience to him. I swallowed hard. "I love this dress," I said, quieter than I meant to. Mark sighed like I was being difficult. "I'm just saying maybe something more sophisticated." He gestured vaguely at a sleek, minimalist gown on the mannequin near the door. "That's more your speed." More your speed. As if he got to decide what suited me. Rosa's eyes flicked between us, her mouth pressed into a thin line. I knew what she was thinking, run. But I wasn't that girl. I was 34, practical, reasonable. I didn't make scenes. So I nodded. "I'll try it on." Mark's smile was victorious. But as I stepped into the dressing room, my hands shook. I stared at my reflection. No lace, no softness, just stiff satin that made me look like a stranger. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a dress. This was the rest of my life. The walk of shame that became a walk of power. The gasps of the crowd were deafening, but my heartbeat was louder. It pulsed in my ears like a war drum as I stood frozen on the church steps, my hand still raised where I just slid off my engagement ring. The diamond caught the sunlight as it tumbled onto the stone, bouncing once before coming to rest at Mark's polished dress shoes. His face went slack with shock. Then, just as quickly, it twisted into something ugly. "You're embarrassing yourself," he hissed under his breath. His fingers twitching like he wanted to grab me but couldn't, not with half the congregation gaping at us. I should have been crying, shaking, falling apart. Instead, I felt terrifyingly calm. "Better embarrassed than trapped," I said, so quietly only he could hear. His eyes flashed, a warning. But for the first time in years I didn't care. The whispers started before I even turned around. Did she just call off the wedding? At the altar? Who does that? Poor Mark. Poor Mark. Always poor Mark. My mother surged forward, her lace-gloved hands fluttering like panicked birds. Claire, honey, she choked out, her voice thick with horrified disbelief. What are you doing? I opened my mouth, but no words came. How could I explain it? That this wasn't about cold feet or last-minute jitters. That it was about the 1,000 tiny cuts I'd ignored. The way he'd mocked my dreams, the way he'd isolated me from friends, the way he'd looked at me in that dress shop like I was something pitiful. A hand clamped onto my elbow. Aunt Lydia, her perfume suddenly suffocating. Go back inside, she ordered through gritted teeth. We'll say you had a panic attack. No one has to know. I wrenched my arm free. That's when I saw him. Stranger. Tall, broad-shouldered, standing slightly apart from the crowd in a charcoal suit that didn't match the wedding's navy theme. He wasn't smiling. Wasn't whispering. Was watching. With an intensity that made my skin prickle. Our eyes locked. Then, as the murmurs crescendoed around me, he did something inexplicable. He stepped forward. Not toward Mark. Not toward the gawking guests. Toward me. People parted for him without seeming to realize why. He moved like he belonged there, like he had every right to walk up those church steps and stop just inches from me. Close enough that I caught the faint scent of cedar and something sharper like ink. For one insane second I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he pressed a folded slip of paper into my palm. His fingers brushed mine, just a fleeting touch, but it sent an electric jolt up my arm. You're not alone, he murmured. Then he was gone, vanishing into the crowd as suddenly as he'd appeared. Mark's voice shattered the moment. Who the hell was that? I didn't answer. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the note. 3 words, scrawled in bold, slashing handwriting. Check his phone. Cold wave crashed over me. Mark was still yelling, my mother was crying. The guests were pulling out their phones to record the meltdown. But all of it faded to static. Because suddenly I knew. This wasn't just about me being too old for a dress. There was something worse. And that stranger. He knew it too. The secret in his suit pocket. The note burned in my palm like a live coal. Check his phone. Mark's phone was practically grafted to his hand. Always face down. Always with that damn fingerprint lock I'd never been allowed to program mine into. Even now, as he paced near the church's vestibule arguing with his best man. His fingers curled possessively around the device. I should have walked away. Gotten in a cab. Never looked back. But that stranger's eyes, the certainty in them, rooted me to the spot. Claire. My mother materialized beside me. Her mascara bleeding down her cheeks. Let's go home. We'll fix this tomorrow when you've calmed down. I am calm, I said, which was true. My hands had stopped shaking. My breathing had steadied. I felt like I'd woken up from a long, foggy dream. Across the courtyard, Mark's mother shot me a glare that could have melted steel. The guests had split into factions. My family hovering near the limo like they wanted to spirit me away. His clustering around him like bodyguards. Perfect. While everyone was distracted, I slipped into the church. The empty pews echoed as I hurried down the aisle toward the groom's prep room. My heels sank into the plush carpet, the scent of lilies and candle wax suddenly overwhelming. The door was ajar. His suit jacket slung carelessly over a chair. My stomach twisted. 2 hours ago, I would have never dreamed of going through his things. Now I didn't hesitate. The inside pocket yielded nothing but a mint and a receipt from the tuxedo rental. I almost gave up until I turned it over. Bridal suite, the Loron Hotel, May 18th. Last night's date. The night Mark had claimed he was too stressed to see me, that he wanted to follow tradition and sleep apart before the wedding. Except the receipt wasn't for his tux. It was for a hotel room. And in the margin, scribbled in loopy feminine handwriting, "Can't wait to finally meet you properly, EXO." The ground tilted. I was still staring at it when the door creaked open behind me. Looking for something. Mark's voice was dangerously quiet. I turned slowly, the receipt crumpling in my fist. Who's staying at the Loron? For a fraction of a second, his mask slipped, panic flashing across his face before settling into cool disdain. You're really going to do this? After humiliating me in front of? Answer the question. He exhaled through his nose, then smirked. Fine. Her name's Valerie. She's a junior associate at the firm. And before you start screeching, we only hooked up after you started getting all neurotic about the wedding details. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. But worse, the way he said it, like I'd driven him to it. Like my excitement over napkin colors and first dance songs had been some unforgivable sin. You're a cliché, I whispered. He snatched the receipt from me. And you're 34, Claire. Did you really think this princess fantasy was going to last? That's when I heard it, the faint buzz of his phone vibrating in his pocket. And suddenly I needed to see it. We moved at the same time. Him reaching to silence it, me lunging forward. Our collision sent his phone clattering to the floor, the screen lighting up with a notification. Valerie, you were right about her. She's even more pathetic in person. Then worse, the photo beneath it. A selfie of them together taken this morning, Mark in his wedding day cufflinks, her in a silky robe, both grinning like they'd already won. Time stop. Mark scrambled for the phone, but I was faster, snatching it up just as another message popped in. Valerie, hurry up and dump her. I'm still in bed. The screen blurred. All those late nights at the office. The emergency weekend trips. Even the way he'd insisted on planning this wedding near his firm's downtown office instead of my hometown. It had all been for her. Give it back, Mark growled. I should have thrown it at his head. Should have screamed. Instead I did something worse. Smiled. Keep it, I said, dropping the phone into the nearest vase of holy water. The plunk was deeply satisfying. Tell Valerie she can have my sloppy seconds. His roar of rage followed me out the door, but I was already running, the note from that stranger still clutched in my hand, one burning question pulsing through my veins. How the hell did he know? The stranger in the shadows. Rain slapped against the taxi window as I tore through the city streets, my wedding dress soaked at the hem. The driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror. A disheveled runaway bride clutching a mysterious note wasn't exactly his usual fare. Check his phone. The stranger's words pulsed in my mind like a second heartbeat. He'd known. Somehow, he'd known about Valerie before I did. Where to, lady? The driver asked for the third time. I stared at the note's sharp handwriting. No address. No number. Just those 3 damning words that had unraveled my life in under an hour. Then I remembered the Loron Hotel. 16th and Waverly, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The hotel loomed like a glass tombstone in the storm. I didn't have a plan as I pushed through the revolving doors, my damp dress leaving a trail on the marble floor. The concierge's eyebrows shot up when I slammed the receipt on the counter. I need to know which room this is for. Ma'am, we can't. Please. My voice cracked. He's upstairs with another woman. On our wedding day. Beat of silence. Then, with the quiet solidarity of someone who'd seen too many cheating spouses, he typed into his computer. Penthouse suite. Elevator to your left. The ride up took forever. Each floor ding was a hammer strike to my ribs. What was I even doing here? Confronting her. Screaming. Throwing something. The answer came when the elevator doors opened directly into the suite's foyer. And there she was. Valerie. Curled on a white leather sofa in a silk slip dress. Her blonde hair perfectly tousled as she tapped at her phone. She looked up with a smirk that froze when she saw me. Well, she drawled, recovering fast. If it isn't the almost Mrs. Calloway. The suite smelled like expensive champagne and her cloying jasmine perfume. An open suitcase spilled lingerie across the bed. Red lingerie, the kind I'd never wear because Mark said it was tacky. You knew about me, I said. Not a question. She stretched like a satisfied cat. Of course. Mark's been very thorough in his comparisons. Her eyes raked over my ruined dress. Though honestly, I expected more competition. The dig should have stung. Instead, I noticed three things in rapid succession. The half-packed toiletry bag with men's products already inside. The airline ticket on the nightstand. First class to Bora Bora, departing tonight. The way her gaze flicked nervously to the bedroom door. Someone else was here. I moved before she could react, shoving past her toward the bedroom, and nearly collided with him. The stranger from the church. Up close, he was even more striking, all sharp angles and stormy gray eyes that widened when he saw me. He held a leather folio stuffed with documents, one hand frozen mid-reach for the doorknob. For one suspended second we just stared. Then Valerie shrieked, "Lucas! What the hell are you doing?" Lucas. Recognition flashed across his face, not at her words but at whatever he saw in mine. Without breaking eye contact, he reached into his jacket and produced a business card, sliding it into my hand with deliberate calm. Lucas Kane. Private Investigations. Below it, scribbled in pen. "He's embezzling from your joint accounts. Get to a bank." Valerie grabbed his arm. "Did you tell her?" Lucas didn't flinch. She deserved to know. The pieces crashed together. His presence at the wedding, the note, the way he'd looked at me with something sharper than pity. This wasn't just an affair. Mark had been stealing from me. Valerie's phone buzzed violently on the coffee table, Mark's name flashing across the screen. Lucas and I locked eyes again as she scrambled for it. "Run," he mouthed. So I did. The numbers don't lie. Rainwater dripped from my hair onto the bank manager's desk as I clutched Lucas's business card like a lifeline. The fluorescent lights of First National Bank made everything feel sterile and surreal, like I'd stepped into some alternate reality where my fiancé was a thief and my wedding dress was ruined beyond repair. "Ms. Whitmore." Manager Rodriguez frowned at his computer screen, then at my disheveled appearance. "You're saying you suspect fraud on your joint accounts?" I pushed my soggy veil out of my face. "I need to see every transaction from the past 6 months." Rodriguez hesitated. "Without Mr. Calloway present." "According to your own signature card," I interrupted, tapping the glass desk. "Either party can access records without the other present. I helped draft that policy when I worked here during grad school, remember?" His eyes widened in recognition. 2 years ago, before Mark convinced me to quit and focus on wedding planning, I'd tempied in their loan department. The printer whirred to life. 10 minutes later, I sat in a back office surrounded by paper, my stomach churning as patterns emerged. $5,000 transferred monthly to an offshore account. $12,750 in business expenses at luxury retailers. Valerie's Instagram flashed in my mind. Her new Cartier bracelet. $23,400 withdrawn in cash the day after my trust fund disbursement. The final blow. A $150,000 loan taken out last week against our condo, the one my inheritance had paid the down payment for. My hand shook so badly the papers rattled. Mark hadn't just cheated. He'd been systematically looting our shared life, likely planning to disappear with Valerie and the money. That tropical getaway ticket hadn't been for their affair. It was his escape plan. "Ms. Whitmore." Rodriguez hovered in the doorway. "There's a man here who says." Lucas stepped around him, rainwater glistening on his leather jacket. His gaze dropped to the damning spread of documents, then back to my face. "You found it." Not a question. An acknowledgement. I stood so fast my chair screeched. "You knew." "For how long?" 3 months. He didn't flinch. "Your cousin hired me after noticing discrepancies in your grandmother's estate disbursements." Mark got sloppy, thought no one would check. My breath hitched. "Sarah. Course." The forensic accountant who'd warned me about Mark's controlling tendencies last Christmas. Lucas pulled a flash drive from his pocket. "Everything's here. Bank records, hidden assets, even the prenup he had Valerie's brother draft to favor him." His voice dropped. "But you need to move fast. That flight to Bora Bora leaves in." He checked his watch. 4 hours. The room tilted. All those late nights Mark spent working, The way he'd insisted on handling all our finances. Even his sudden enthusiasm for a prenup after initially refusing one. It had all been a con. I grabbed my phone and did 3 things in rapid succession. Froze all joint accounts. Emailed the fraud evidence to Sarah and a divorce attorney. Called a locksmith to change every lock at the condo. When I looked up, Lucas was watching me with something like respect. Most people cry first. I'll cry later. I shoved the documents into my bag. Right now, I want to ruin him. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Then you'll need this. He handed me another file. This one with surveillance photos of Mark meeting with a known forger downtown. He's been falsifying your signatures on loan documents. The final piece clicked. Mark hadn't just wanted to leave me. He'd planned to leave me destitute. Outside, thunder cracked like the universe itself was furious. Lucas held the door as I marched into the storm, the heels of my ruined wedding shoes striking the pavement like gunshots. Somewhere in this city, Mark was scrambling to cover his tracks. Little did he know. His worst nightmare wasn't losing Valerie or the stolen money. It was me with nothing left to lose. The reckoning. The storm mirrored my rage as Lucas's black SUV sped through downtown. Rain blurred the city lights into streaks of color against the darkened windows. My soaked wedding dress clung to my skin, but I barely noticed. Every nerve in my body was focused on the documents spread across my lap, each page another nail in Mark's coffin. Turn left here, I instructed Lucas, my voice steadier than I felt. His office is in the next block. Lucas's grip tightened on the steering wheel. You sure you want to do this now? We could. I'm done waiting. The words came out sharp, final. The car slid to a stop outside the gleaming high-rise that housed Mark's investment firm. Through the downpour, I could see lights still burning on the 18th floor. Of course he'd be working late tonight, probably transferring the last of our money before his flight. I shoved the car door open before Lucas could stop me. Claire, wait. He grabbed my wrist. At least take this. He pressed a small digital recorder into my palm. Whatever happens up there, you'll want proof. The elevator ride took an eternity. With each passing floor, my pulse hammered louder. The doors slid open to reveal an empty reception area, but Mark's voice carried down the hallway, sharp with irritation. Don't care what excuses you make, just get it done before morning. I followed the sound to his corner office. The door stood slightly ajar. Through the gap, I saw Mark pacing behind his desk, phone pressed to his ear. His tuxedo jacket discarded over a chair. Valerie lounged on his leather sofa, idly flipping through what looked like property listings. Bora Bora, no doubt. I didn't knock. The door hit the wall with a crash that made them both jump. Mark's face cycled through shock, anger, then a sickening attempt at charm when he saw the folder in my hands. Claire, thank God you're here. We need to talk about what happened. Save it. I threw the bank statements across his desk. I know everything. Valerie sat up straight, her smirk fading as pages fluttered to the floor. Mark's jaw worked silently as he stared at the evidence of his theft. For one glorious moment, he looked genuinely afraid. Then his mask snapped back into place. He ended his call with deliberate calm. You don't understand what you're looking at. I understand you stole nearly $200,000 from me. I understand you forged my signature. And I especially understand. I yanked the Bora Bora ticket from Valerie's hands, that you were planning to disappear with your mistress tonight. Valerie made a grab for the ticket. You bitch. Lucas materialized in the doorway behind me, his silent presence making her freeze mid-lunge. Mark's eyes darted between us, calculating. Then, to my disgust, he laughed. You always were dramatic. He leaned against his desk, the picture of casual arrogance. Those transfers were authorized. The condo loan. A smart investment. As for Valerie, he shrugged. A man has needs you couldn't satisfy. The recorder in my pocket felt suddenly heavy. Is that why you needed my money? I asked softly. To satisfy your needs. His smile turned vicious. Let's be honest. You'd have wasted it on charity work and that ridiculous dress shop fantasy. At least I put it to good use. The admission hung in the air between us, more damning than any document. I let the silence stretch until he shifted uncomfortably. Then I reached into my bag and slid one final paper across his desk. A police report filed an hour ago, complete with all the evidence Lucas and I had gathered. Mark's face went gray. You have until sunrise to return every penny. I turned toward the door. Or I press charges. Valerie shot to her feet. You can't prove anything. Lucas held up his phone, displaying a video of Mark's forger confessing to the signature fraud. We can. The blood drained from Mark's face. For the first time in our relationship, I saw him truly speechless. I paused at the threshold, rain dripping from my dress onto his pristine office carpet. Oh, and Mark, cancel your trip. You're not going anywhere. The elevator doors closed on his stunned silence. Outside, the storm had broken. Pale moonlight filtered through the clouds as Lucas and I stood on the sidewalk, the city humming around us. He studied my face. You okay? I took a deep breath, expecting the tears to come. Instead, I felt something unexpected, freedom. I will be. Somewhere above us, a window shattered. Mark's furious scream echoed down the skyscraper's facade. Lucas and I exchanged a glance. Then, for the first time that day, I laughed. The morning after. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Sarah's guest bedroom, painting stripes of gold across the unfamiliar walls. I blinked awake, momentarily disoriented by the quiet, by the soft cotton sheets that weren't mine, by the absence of wedding bands on my left hand. Then it all came rushing back. The church, the receipts, Mark's confession. My phone buzzed violently on the nightstand. 13 missed calls from Mark. 22 from my mother. A string of increasingly desperate texts that I deleted without reading. The only message that gave me pause was from an unknown number. He returned the first $50,000. Police are monitoring his accounts. Stay strong, Ul. Lucas. I traced the letters with my finger, remembering how he'd stood silently in that office doorway last night, letting me take the lead but ready to intervene if needed. The way his presence alone had made Valerie shrink back. A knock at the door startled me. You decent. Sarah called through the wood. I made coffee, and pancakes, and possibly mimosas because, well, yesterday. My cousin bustled in carrying a tray laden with enough food for 3 people. Her curly red hair piled into a messy bun. She took one look at my face and set the tray down with a clatter. Oh, Claire Bear. That childhood nickname undid me. The tears came then, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body. Sarah crawled into bed beside me, holding me tight as I cried for the wedding that wasn't, the future I'd lost, the betrayal that cut deeper than I wanted to admit. When I finally pulled away, she handed me a mimosa. Drink. Then talk. The story tumbled out in fragments. The dress comment, the hotel receipt, Lucas's mysterious note. Sarah listened without interrupting, her expression growing fiercer with each revelation. That slimy, cheating, thieving. I know. No, you don't. She grabbed her laptop from the nightstand. Lucas sent this last night after you passed out. The screen showed a series of financial transactions. Mark hadn't just returned $50,000. He'd liquidated stocks, cancelled wire transfers, even sold Valerie's Cartier bracelet based on the latest entry. Sarah zoomed in on a document. Recognize this. My breath caught. The prenup Mark had insisted we sign last month. The one guaranteeing him half my assets in case of divorce. Lucas had uncovered a clause voiding the agreement if infidelity or fraud could be proven. Turns out your ex sucks at covering his tracks, Sarah said grimly. Lucas found emails between him and Valerie discussing exactly how to drain your accounts after the wedding. The room spun. All those little comments Mark had made about my spending habits. His insistence that we merge finances immediately after the ceremony. A new text buzzed. He's at your condo with movers. Says he's retrieving his things. Want me to handle it? Lucas again. I sat up straighter, wiping my face. Tell him no. I'll handle it myself. Sarah grinned. That's my girl. 30 minutes later I stood outside our condo in yesterday's wrinkled clothes, my spine steeled for battle. The door was ajar, voices floating out from inside. Take the TV and the leather recliner, Mark was directing movers. And that painting. My painting. The one my grandmother had left me. I stepped inside. The movers froze when they saw me. Mark turned slowly, his expression cycling from surprise to annoyance. Claire. I was just stealing from me again. I held up my phone, displaying the police report number Lucas had helped me file. Those movers leave with one thing that's mine, and I press charges immediately. Mark's jaw clenched. You're being unreasonable. Funny. I crossed to the bookshelf, pulling down the framed photo of us from our engagement party. That's exactly what I thought when I saw your bank transfers. I dropped the frame into the trash with a satisfying crash. The movers edged toward the door. Mark's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, Valerie, and silenced it with a snarl. What do you want, Claire? Money. Revenge. Neither. I took my spare key from the hook by the door. I want you gone. Permanently. For a long moment we stared each other down, two strangers who'd somehow promised forever. Then Mark grabbed his suitcase and shoved past me without another word. The door slammed behind him. Silence settled over the condo like dust. My knees buckled, but before I could collapse, strong hands caught my shoulders. Lucas stood behind me, his gray eyes scanning my face. You okay? I looked around at the half-empty living room, at the gaps where Mark's things had been, at the sunlight streaming through the windows onto floors that no longer felt tainted. For the first time in years I breathed freely. Yeah, I said. And meant it. New beginnings and unexpected suspicions. A week after the earthquake that destroyed my engagement, I finally sat in my own dining room, surrounded by moving boxes and the smell of fresh paint. I had spent the past days erasing every trace of Mark from the apartment, from the photos on the walls to the lingering scent of his aftershave in the bathroom. Sarah walked into the kitchen with a toolbox. Ready to assemble your new work desk. I think it's symbolic to start your interior design business right where he used to keep that hideous sofa. I smiled, picking up a screwdriver. Thank you. For everything. She waved it off, but we both knew that without her and Lucas, I'd be lost. Speaking of him. The doorbell rang. Lucas stood at the door, wearing his usual leather jacket and carrying a folder under his arm. His stormy gray eyes quickly scanned the organized chaos of my new life. Looks like you're settling in. Trying to, I replied, pushing aside thoughts of how attractive he looked in the afternoon light. Come in. He set the folder on the table. Mark liquidated another $80,000 today. There's still $70,000 missing, but something's off. He opened the folder, revealing bank statements. He's moving money too fast, like he's in a hurry. And Valerie's gone missing. I froze, coffee cup in hand. Missing. She booked a one-way ticket to Barbados yesterday. Alone. His fingers tapped the table. I think Mark didn't tell her everything he stole from you. Sarah whistled low. You think he's going to ditch her and let her take the fall? Lucas and I exchanged a glance. That was exactly the kind of thing Mark would do. Suddenly Lucas's phone buzzed. He read the message and his expression hardened. We need to go. Now. Where? I asked, already grabbing my jacket. His office. Just got an alert. He's wiping his files. Lucas's car sped through the streets as I tried to process everything. Why would he do this now? He's already returned most of the money. Because it was never just about the money, Lucas replied, taking a sharp turn. There's something else in those files. Something he doesn't want the police to find. When we arrived at Mark's building, the déjà vu was overwhelming. But this time there was no nervousness, just icy determination. The security guard tried to stop us. Mr. Calloway left explicit instructions. Lucas flashed a court order. Financial fraud investigation. Give us 5 minutes. The elevator ride up was silent. When the doors opened, the office was dark, except for a single light in the back. The sound of a paper shredder reached us. We moved in sync, Lucas leading like a shield. Mark's office door was slightly ajar. Inside, he was frantically destroying documents, his forehead gleaming with sweat. He didn't see us until Lucas kicked the door open. Mark looked up, his face twisted in panic. "You can't be here." Destroying evidence?" Lucas asked calmly, pulling out his phone to record. That's when I saw it, on the floor among the shredded papers, a contract with my grandmother's foundation's logo. The charity's name was clearly visible. "My God," I choked out, picking up a piece. "You stole from the foundation too." Mark's eyes darted between us like a cornered animal. Then, without warning, he lunged for the window, not to jump, but to press a hidden button behind the curtain. An alarm blared. Lucas reacted fast, pushing me behind him. "Escape plan," he muttered. "This office has a secret exit." Mark was already running to a wall panel I'd never have noticed. He opened it, revealing a service staircase. "You're not going anywhere," Lucas growled, stepping forward. But Mark was prepared. He hurled a heavy chair at us, forcing Lucas to dodge. By the time we recovered, Mark was already halfway down the stairs. Lucas locked eyes with me, his gaze burning with intensity. "Call the police. I'm going after him." Before I could respond, he vanished into the dark stairwell. I stood alone in the wrecked office, the alarm screaming in my ears, clutching the remnants of my grandmother's contract. One thing was certain, this was far from over. Chase through the dark. The emergency stairwell swallowed Lucas instantly, his footsteps echoing upward into darkness. I stood frozen for half a heartbeat, the blaring alarm shredding my thoughts. Then instinct took over. I grabbed the heaviest thing within reach, Mark's bronze desk lamp, and ran after them. The metal stairs vibrated underfoot as I climbed, following the sounds of scuffling above. At the rooftop access door, cold wind slapped my face as I burst outside into swirling night. The city skyline glittered below, but my focus locked on the 2 figures near the edge. Mark had Lucas pinned against a ventilation unit, his forearm crushing Lucas's throat. "You should have stayed out of this," Mark snarled. I didn't think. I hurled the lamp. It struck Mark's shoulder with a metallic clang. He whirled, shock flashing across his face when he saw me. That split second was all Lucas needed. His fist connected with Mark's jaw in a crack that echoed across the rooftop. Mark staggered back, toward the 6-foot gap separating our building from the next. "Don't!" I screamed, but Mark jumped. He barely cleared it, rolling hard on the adjacent rooftop before scrambling to his feet. Lucas was already running for the fire escape ladder. "Stay here," he ordered. Like hell I would. By the time I climbed down, Lucas had Mark cornered near a construction scaffold. Moonlight glinted off something in Mark's hand, a box cutter from the demolition site. "You're not walking away from this," Lucas said, circling like a wolf. "The police have the foundation documents." Mark's laugh was unhinged. "You think I care about some charity paperwork? That was just pocket change." His wild eyes flicked to me. "Tell her, Claire. Tell her what you really stole." Shot through my veins. "What are you talking about?" The box cutter flashed as Mark lunged. Lucas dodged, but not fast enough. The blade grazed his forearm, leaving a dark streak. I grabbed a length of rebar from the construction debris. "You want to play hero?" Mark spat blood. "Fine." The real prize was always the Whitmore Trust. 3 generations of investments just waiting for a husband to. The realization hit me like a freight train. Our rushed wedding. His insistence on merging finances immediately. That sudden prenup favoring him. You never loved me, I whispered. This was always about the money. Mark smiled, the same charming smile that had once made my stomach flutter. Now it made me sick. Lucas moved before I could blink. One brutal punch to the solar plexus, another to the temple, and Mark crumpled like a marionette with cut strings. Sirens wailed in the distance. Lucas kicked the box cutter away, breathing hard. Blood dripped from his arm onto the concrete. You're hurt, I said stupidly. He caught my wrist as I reached for him. His palm was warm, calloused. Claire, the trust. Did you? I never signed anything. The words tumbled out. Grandmother's lawyers required separate meetings. I kept postponing because something had always felt off. Some gut instinct I'd ignored until it screamed at me on those church steps. Red and blue lights painted the alley below. Lucas's thumb brushed my pulse point just once. Smart woman. Mark groaned at our feet. Lucas hauled him up by his ruined collar as police stormed the rooftop. Detective Ruiz took one look at the scene and shook her head. Mr. Calloway, you have the right to remain silent. As they led Mark away, Lucas's phone buzzed. He showed me the screen, a flight alert. Valerie's plane had just landed in Barbados, where Interpol waited. I exhaled shakily. It's really over. Lucas studied my face in the flashing lights. No, he said quietly. It's just starting. And for the first time since this nightmare began, that thought didn't terrify me. The first day of the rest. The morning sun painted golden stripes across my kitchen table where Lucas sat, wincing as I dabbed antiseptic on his forearm. The cut wasn't deep, but seeing that red line against his tan skin made my stomach twist. You should have let the paramedics do this, I murmured, carefully wrapping the bandage. His fingers flexed under my touch. I like your version better. A flush crept up my neck. 3 days had passed since Mark's arrest, and Lucas had barely left my side, helping me sort through legal paperwork, changing my locks again, even scaring off a tabloid reporter who'd come sniffing for a jilted bride story. My phone buzzed with another email from the foundation's lawyers. Mark had siphoned nearly $300,000 from grandmother's charity, but between the recovered funds and insurance, they'd survive. Sarah breezed in with 2 coffee cups, setting one in front of Lucas with exaggerated care. For our hero. He rolled his eyes but took the mug. Just doing my job. Bullshit, Sarah said cheerfully. You were off the clock when you chased Mark onto that roof. A notification popped up on my laptop. A news alert. My breath caught. They indicted him. The article detailed 12 counts including fraud, embezzlement, and attempted assault. Valerie had been detained in Barbados, caught trying to access one of Mark's offshore accounts. Lucas's knee brushed mine under the table. You okay? I stared at Mark's booking photo, the perfectly styled hair now messy, the arrogant smirk replaced by a snarl. The man I'd almost married looked like a stranger. Yeah, I realized. I really am. Sarah clinked her cup against mine. To fresh starts. And to you finally opening that design firm you've been dreaming about. Lucas reached into his jacket and slid a business card across the table. Speaking of which, my friend owns that retail space on Elm Street. The one with the bay windows you liked. My mouth fell open. How did you? Please. Sarah snorted. You've pointed it out every time we drive past. The card bore the name of a commercial realtor and a handwritten note. Tenant application attached. Says, Interior Design Studio, at the top. My vision blurred. After years of Mark dismissing my dreams as hobbies, this simple piece of cardboard felt like a lifeline. Lucas cleared his throat. There's one condition. Name it. You let me buy the first round at your grand opening. His smile did something dangerous to my pulse. Sarah fake gagged into her coffee. I'll leave you to whatever this is. I've got a date with Netflix and my sweatpants. The moment the door clicked shut, Lucas turned serious. Claire. About Mark's mention of the Whitmore Trust. I know. I traced the rim of my mug. Grandmother structured it so no spouse could touch the principal. But the income would have been substantial. His jaw tightened. He was playing the long game. A year ago, that revelation might have shattered me. Now I just felt free. I stood abruptly. Come with me. My spare bedroom was piled with design samples, fabric swatches, paint chips, a mood board covered in tear sheets. Lucas's eyebrows rose at the explosion of colors and textures. This, I said, gesturing wildly, is what I wanted to do before Mark said it was unrealistic. Before I shrank myself to fit his idea of a perfect wife. Lucas picked up a cobalt blue tile, turning it in the sunlight. You're really good at this. How would you know? Because I've seen your apartment. His thumb brushed the tile's edge. Every inch of it feels like you. Even before you kicked Mark out. The air between us charged like before a thunderstorm. I wanted to kiss him. Wanted it so badly my hands trembled. I need to do this alone first, I blurted. The studio, the business. I need to know I can stand on my own. Lucas didn't look offended. He looked proud. I know. He set the tile down carefully. Doesn't mean I won't bring you coffee while you do it. The tension broke into laughter. Outside, a breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine through the open window. Somewhere in the city, Mark sat in a jail cell. But here something new was beginning. Grand opening, unexpected closing. The bell above my studio door chimed for what felt like the 100th time that afternoon. I adjusted the hem of my emerald green wrap dress, the one Sarah had insisted was power color worthy of my grand opening, and turned to greet another potential client. Instead, Lucas walked in carrying 2 steaming to-go cups. His navy button-down rolled to the elbows, revealing the now faded scar from that rooftop fight. 3 months had turned him from a stranger into a constant, showing up with takeout when I worked late, lending his truck to haul fabric samples, even letting me practice paint swatches on his apartment walls. You forgot to eat again, he said, setting down a coffee and a paper bag that smelled suspiciously of my favorite almond croissant. I opened my mouth to protest when the door chimed once more. A woman in a Chanel suit stood frozen in the doorway, her manicured fingers clutching a copy of Design Weekly featuring my studio. My stomach dropped. Mom! Lucas stiffened beside me. He'd heard enough about my parents' initial reaction to the breakup, how they'd worried I'd acted rashly by calling off the wedding before Mark's crimes came to light. Eleanor Whitmore surveyed the exposed brick walls, the carefully curated vintage furniture displays, and finally Lucas's protective stance near my elbow. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Darling, the place looks quaint. She set a gift bag on the counter. I brought champagne. Though I suppose we should discuss why the family accountant just received a subpoena about your trust fund. Lucas's hand found the small of my back, steadying me. Mrs. Whitmore. Not now, Mr. Kane. She didn't even glance his way. Claire, did you really involve the police in private family matters? The studio buzzed around us, clients admiring fabric swatches, Sarah cheerfully explaining my design philosophy to a young couple, while my mother's quiet fury carved a hole through the celebration. It's not private when Mark tried to steal from grandmother's foundation, I said, keeping my voice low. Allegedly. Mom. He confessed. She finally looked at Lucas. After being chased onto a roof, I hear. How very dramatic. The unspoken accusation hung between us, that I'd traded a stable, respectable future for some PI fling and a hobby business. My fingers curled around the edge of the counter, the same way they had at 12 when she'd called my sketchbooks distractions. Then Lucas did something unexpected. He laughed, not cruelly, just a warm, disarming chuckle as he picked up the champagne. Mrs. Whitmore, you must be so proud. Claire built all this while dealing with legal nightmares and media vultures. He popped the cork with practiced ease. Hell, I'd be bragging to everyone at the club. My mother blinked. No one talked back to Eleanor Whitmore. Sarah materialized with 3 glasses, her smile razor-sharp. Oh yes, Claire's been so busy. Did you know Bergdorf's just commissioned her to redesign their VIP lounge? Lie. A glorious, defiant lie. Mom's perfectly arched brows lifted. Is that so? Lucas poured the champagne, his shoulder brushing mine. To Claire, he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. For having the guts to walk away when most would have stayed. Glasses clinked around us. My mother sipped hers in stunned silence as clients began approaching with congratulations. Not just for the imaginary Bergdorf's deal, but for the Design Weekly feature, for surviving scandal, for creating something beautiful from the wreckage. When Mom finally left, so many people to call darling, Sarah fake swooned against a display table. Did we just witness Lucas Kane charm the dragon? He shrugged, but his eyes never left mine. Just told the truth. The crowd thinned as evening fell. Lucas stayed to help clean up, his presence as steady as the jazz playlist still drifting through the speakers. You know, he said, folding a throw blanket with surprising precision, that subpoena might uncover more than Mark's scheme. Paused mid-sweep. Meaning. He stepped closer, the fading sunlight catching the gold flecks in his eyes. Some people don't like it when quiet girls stop following the script. A shiver ran down my spine. Because he wasn't just talking about my mother. Or Mark. He was talking about me. The version of myself I'd buried to please everyone else. The version this studio, this messy, beautiful new life, was finally setting free. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. Somewhere beyond those windows, the past still lurked. Legal battles, family expectations, the ghost of a wedding dress I'd never wear. But here, with paint samples scattered like confetti and Lucas's quiet strength beside me, here I was exactly where I belonged. 1 year later. The dress I was meant to wear. The scent of fresh paint and jasmine filled my studio as I put the finishing touches on the Bergdorf's project. The real one this time, not Sarah's brilliant lie. The contract had landed in my inbox 6 months ago, a direct result of the Design Weekly feature. Funny how life works when you stop listening to the people who say you can't. The bell above the door chimed, and I knew it was Lucas before I even turned around. 3 years together had attuned me to the rhythm of his footsteps, the way his keys jingled in his pocket, the faint cedar and ink scent that clung to his clothes. "You're late," I teased, swiveling in my chair. He stood in the doorway, looking unfairly handsome in a charcoal suit. His hair still damp from a shower. In one hand he held a garment bag. In the other a single peony, my favorite. "Had to pick something up," he said, crossing the room to kiss me. Not a quick peck, the kind we exchanged over morning coffee, but the slow, lingering kind that still made my toes curl. I pulled back, eyeing the garment bag. Is that what I think it is? Only one way to find out. Inside was a dress. Not just any dress, the dress. The vintage lace one Mark had sneered at 3 years ago on what should have been our wedding day. The one I'd stuffed into the back of my closet and forgotten about. Until Lucas found it last month. "You sent it to a preservation specialist," I realized, running my fingers over the delicate embroidery. The stains were gone, the fabric restored to its original ivory glow. Lucas shrugged, but his eyes were soft. Seemed like a shame to waste it. I held it up to my body, the skirt billowing around me. It fit differently now, not just because I'd gained a few pounds of happiness, but because I was different. The woman who'd once trembled on church steps now owned a thriving business. The girl who'd begged for approval now drew boundaries in permanent ink. Lucas's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then at me. "Car's here. Already. The gala doesn't start for." "Trust me," he said, offering his arm. The car didn't head toward the museum where the charity gala was being held. Instead, it wound through the city, up to the cliffs overlooking the Hudson. My breath caught as we pulled up to the same little chapel where, 3 years ago, I'd almost married the wrong man. Only now, it was draped in peonies and twinkling lights. And standing on the steps, Sarah, my parents, Lucas's brother, a handful of close friends. And at the center of it all, a grinning officiant. I turned to Lucas, my vision blurring. You planned this. He dropped to one knee right there in the gravel parking lot, pulling a ring box from his pocket. Claire Whitmore, you once walked away from this place to save yourself. Today, I'm asking you to walk back in with me. The ring inside wasn't some cold, perfect diamond. It was an emerald, vibrant, imperfect, alive, flanked by tiny sapphires the exact color of his eyes. I didn't say yes. I screamed it. An hour later, I stood at the altar in the dress, holding Lucas's hands as we exchanged the vows we'd written ourselves. No fancy words. No empty promises. Just the truth, that we'd seen each other at our worst and chosen to stay. As the officiant pronounced us married, Lucas leaned in. For the record, he whispered, you're not too old for this dress. You're perfect for it. Outside, as our friends cheered and the sunset painted the sky in gold and violet, I realized something. The best endings aren't endings at all. They're beginnings in disguise. Before you go, did Claire's journey inspire you? Smash that like button if you believe in second chances. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and love. Drop a comment. Would you have worn the dress? Want more? Check the description for our free bonus chapter. 5 years later. The vow we didn't see coming.